And we are live again here at Ishook Comics. Last week was a little bit break for all of us. And we are here with our great friend, BL Blankenship, Ishook Comics Editor-in-Chief. And our new guest for this week, Mr. Ron Fortier. Whatever.
40 years fine.
40 years. Okay, I got it. Guys, I'm only learning. This is the whole thing. I'm only learning. So we are here. Ben is alive and he's eating. I mean, are you serious, Ben? Come on. Where's that spoiler? Where's the spoiler alert, bro?
Dude, we're in the midst of moving. We don't even have everything unpacked. I can't even find half of my stuff. It's crazy. If people notice that the background is different. Of course, I got the vinyl out. I've been like blasting vinyl and everything like that. I love vinyl. It sounds better.
Well, I'm glad you're able to move to a better location, a better suitable housing area. I see you have your own room over there.
Yeah, I have a new bend in. Yes.
All right. That's good. Ben Den. It could be a good comic name. Ben Den, Ben. Anyway, we are here today. Ben 10. That's the whole point. I was trying to make a joke about that.
I understand. I get this.
All right. Anyway, we're here. We're here today with our good guest. We're gonna ask him first to introduce himself. Who is he? Where is he? What is he? And what does he do? Go ahead, Mr. Ron.
All right. Ron Fortier, and I'm here because for the last 50 some odd years, I have been writing comic books. And as of the last 20 years, I've gotten into self-publishing short stories and science fiction and pulp novels. I'm currently the managing editor of an outfit called Airship 27 Productions, where we publish brand new pulp stories featuring classic pulp characters from the 1930s and 40s, and both in anthologies and in novel form. So that's basically who I am.
Wow. All right. That's cool. Ben, how was your weekend this weekend?
Man, it's never boring. I had to block the only hysterical.
Don't mention his name.
The name that shall not be spoken. Yes.
Yes.
I'd block and mute that person, and yet he's been tagging me on Twitter. He's one of these lunatics that tries to create drama in comics. Ron, you probably know about these types. God forbid I'm not allowed to talk to this person or that person. I'm nice to everybody. Everybody likes me apparently, except this like one dude and two other people that he's drawn into it. So yeah, they're like, man, you've really got around, Ron. I mean, I was looking at the catalog of stuff that you did via your Wikipedia page, and I mean, you've written for multiple different comic publishing people. Of course, I know you through the Silverline stuff. I see that you do stuff there. They still put things out in shops, which I think is great. I like the whole, in the stores thing. They've got something that's coming out in May. Let me click over here in previews. Divinity #1 is what's coming out in May. Johnson, Barb, Kahlberg, it says for the names of the people that are doing that. I saw that you wrote an Incredible Hulk annual for Marvel.
Oh yeah, 89, I believe, somewhere in that category, and had the real fun of working with then unknown Paul Pelletier as the artist on that story.
That's cool.
And so that was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm primarily known in the community, I guess, for my breakout work, which was in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when I brought the Green Hornet back to comics via Now Comics out of Chicago. And for several years, I wrote the Green Hornet as a monthly comic for them. At the same time, I was also writing their version of the film, The Terminator. And just had a great time doing it. That was pretty much the launch of my professional career. I'd done smaller comics prior to that, but again, like I said, once I was doing Green Hornet and Terminator for Now Comics, that pretty much put me on the creators comic book map, if you will. And even today, all these years later, it's always rewarding to find fans who remember those books and come to the table and have copies for me to autograph for them.
That's really cool. I see that Benny's rolling, and I'm seeing that you got the Chuck Dixon up that's coming out, what, like a week from now?
The Working Man, based on his Levon Cade action thriller novels. And, oh, man, those things are great. They are absolutely awesome. I highly recommend them. They're published by Wolfpack Press. There are 12 total. And, of course, The Working Man is an adaptation of the first novel, Levon's Trade. And myself and a lot of Chuck's colleagues and friends are wicked excited about this. And, you know, awesome. I mean, the pedigree for the film itself has David Ayer is the guy who did Beekeeper directing, and Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay.
Oh,
so
wow.
you know this thing is going to be cram-packed with action from start to finish.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you have Jason Statham on it, you know, right?
I love Stallone's story, how he wrote Rocky, and they were trying to force somebody else to play Rocky, and he said, "No, we're not going to do it unless I play him." And that was his break. But you know, he said nobody's going to play it right. You know, he's like, I know how this role is. I've got to do it. So I'm just curious. Tell me about Silverline. Is that creator owned or is it?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I was just trying to figure how it worked exactly.
Silverline was around, I want to say, back in the early 90s. At that time, Roland Mann, the owner of Silverline, had gotten into the business as a writer and had done some work for Malibu. And along the way, he, you know, I mean, the late 80s and early 90s was the big, you know, boom for independence. Everybody was out there, Eclipse for his comics, Kamiko, all of them. And so Roland started creating his own properties, and I believe then started Silverline. But then when the great implosion happened and all these companies went out of business and everything, it was a time to take a step back. So Roland basically stays in the business as a writer, ends up in Florida, where he ends up being a teacher. And he works for a community college in Florida, teaching, of all things, comic scripting. And approximately maybe, 3-4 years ago, he decides to get together with some friends that he published with in the past and revive Silverline and bring it back. Okay, so sure enough, the word gets out to a lot of his you know, fellow writers and artists and colleagues, and they start putting together some titles. And as it turns out, one of those was going to be illustrated by an artist named Rob Davis, who's one of my best friends in the business and co-runs Airship 27 with me. Rob's the art director of Airship 27. Aside from the fact that Rob and I also do our own comic line via an outfit he calls Redbud Studios. So, coming back from that digression, Rob is now drawing a series for Silverline, and one night gives me a call and says, Roland's looking for properties. You might, you know, want to put something together and check it out and see if you'd be interested. So I put it on the back burner. I have, you know, I've always got a table that's way too full of projects. So it wasn't anything I was rushing to do. I was watching what they were doing. I was impressed. I was happy for all of them. Then one night I find myself surfing the web and I come across a couple of comic book pages, fully illustrated, fully colored, but no text and no dialogue or captions. And it was a 5-page science fiction sequence where this female warrior in like Greek armor is on a solar sailor, and she's flying up to this planet. Then she lands on the planet, and she's walking amongst ruins when all of a sudden she's attacked by a male warrior, this time in similar armor, and they start going at it with laser swords. And those are the 5 pages. Yeah. And so out of curiosity, right, I check out the artist, and it's a gentleman from Italy named Andrea Bormida. Well, absolutely taken and fascinated by those 5 pages. I immediately
we're working together, by the way. I've got him doing my Hellfire Comics interior. Wonderful. He's outstanding. I just love him.
Andrea is the salt of the earth. Let me tell you, he is. We've been working together for now just going on 3 years, and so so I basically wrote and said, "Man, these pages are absolutely beautiful. I mean, what's the story? I mean, you got a comic plan, you got something going with this." Well, as it all turned out, Andrea had a notion or an idea that he just loved to play with designing characters and spaceships and whatever. And he just put this together pretty much ad hoc, to the point where, reading my comments, he recognizes my name, gets back to me and said, "You the guy who did the Green Hornet and Terminator way back when?" And I went, "Yeah, that's me, guilty as charged." He said, "Well, look," he says, "I've got like a half a page outline. Would you mind looking at it and see what you think?" So he sends me his outline. It's basically just the names of the characters, not a heck of a lot more. Now, I keep studying those 5 pages. I've since downloaded them, so I keep looking at them and marvel at them, till eventually I was so in love with what he was doing, I came up with a concept and a plot for a series based on those characters and how to further develop them. Sent that back to Andrea, and he's overjoyed. Suddenly, okay, these characters can come to life, we'll put them in the series. And he comes back to me and said, "Well, do you have a place where we can get this published?" And lo and behold, I remember Rob telling me about Roland Silverline. So that afternoon, I sent those 5 pages to Roland, plus my outline for a possible series, and said, "Here you go. This guy's from Italy. Up until this time, he'd never been published in the States. Most of his work had been done in European markets." So again, I mailed this off like mid-afternoon. That night, my wife and I are watching Jeopardy, and my cell phone buzzes, and I look down, and it's Roland, and he goes, "Deliver it in 22 pages, and you got a deal." That's it. It's yours. So from that comes a proposal for a 6-issue science fiction series called Beyond the Stars, with yours truly writing it, Andrea illustrating it. We just successfully, several months back, finished a funding campaign for issue number 4.
Cool.
Andrea's halfway through illustrating number 5, which hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get out before year's end.
He's
and that
super
will leave
fast.
us the penultimate number 6.
Yeah, he works at a really good speed, and I really like that. A lot of artists that you talk to, they have multiple things that they juggle or whatever, but he works at a good speed.
Oh, he's very conscientious, and I mean, again, a credit to his character. When I explained to him, the Silverline setup, all right, and the fact that these are independent comic, small companies, all right, and there wasn't going to be a ton of money. Peanuts if you're lucky, okay? I mean, this is the state of the business in small independents, and that's what this is about. Nobody's getting rich doing these things, all right? I guess bottom line, and not trying to sound old-fashioned, but most of us are still in this. I mean, hey, look, I retired a long time ago from the day job. Happily, knock on wood, I get a pension every month, whatever. I do comics because I love doing comics, all right? I mean, the day I stop wanting to do comics will be the day I take my last breath. So up front, I'm always honest with any artist I work with on any project I work with. And so Andrea got back to me and said, "Well, you know what?" He said, "I'm doing a couple of other, things again for the European market." And he goes, "I'm doing okay." He said, "It's just, I'm excited about maybe having this published in the States, that American publishers can see my work." So he goes, "Okay, I'm on board." So as I said, we start putting out the issues, and sure enough, I mean, the money dwindles, and there's very little of it. We're lucky we get comp copies, and we get them out there and whatever. And I'm concerned, and I ultimately wrote him back one day and basically said, "You know what, Andrea, I understand if you can't keep doing this. I totally get it. All right. I mean, again, having been in this business as long as I have, all right, a writer can sit down and knock off a script in a week easily with no problems at all. the flip side of being a comic book artist is labor intensive. It takes time. It takes a whole lot of time. All right. And so he could be doing other paying gigs from either England, France, Germany, whatever, Portugal.
The French market is huge, man.
Right.
Huge.
Exactly. God bless his soul. He gets back to me and said, no. He said, we've done a couple of issues. We were then about ready to launch issue number 3. And he basically said, no. He said, I gave you my word, Ron. He said, I'm committed. We are going to do all 6 issues and get this thing finished.
That's awesome.
And he's kept his word. Like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him.
That's the real deal in business. You know, it's not, what was his name? Graham has said that it's you got to be a business person first before you can be, before you can be a writer or a per se illustrator. Because if you don't know the business aspect, you don't have that business ethics, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's just like, you know, I deal with young creators every now and then, and you get this thing about, well, send me a contract. All right, I got to have a contract. And as much as I appreciate that, okay, there's a difference between knowing the business and then relying on a piece of paper. Because even if you have a piece of paper and you're dealing with somebody who's unscrupulous and doesn't have any backbone or character or dishonest, that piece of paper doesn't mean anything anyways.
Integrity.
They're still going to stab you in the back and walk away.
It's work ethic. I mean, we Ben knows we had this issue with our comic venture, where there's contracts were broken and revised without any, you know, people sign contracts without even understanding what the contract is. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. But again, there's something called handshake. You know, me and Daniel always talk about this in our other podcasts. Handshakes, you know, handshake deals. You know, I have certain people I can do a handshake deal. We know we got to get it done. We get it done. We know what the difference is, the allocations of funds are going to be, and we can do the contracts later. But you know, if you can't have that kind of relationship with an individual, then you're never going to have a 6-issue, 10-issue, or 20-issue product.
No. And I mean, look, I mean, how valuable is your name? Okay, how much worth is your reputation? All right. I mean, again, 50 years in the business, I've never broken my word to any publisher, to any artist I've worked with. When I make commitments, I stick to them. I adhere them faithfully, loyally. I've never missed a single deadline. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, it's going to be there. You're going to have the script in hand, and most likely long before the deadline even approaches. To me, it was never, ever about fame or riches or whatever, all right? It's once again, okay, building a career and a name that people would say, you know, this guy's a straight shooter. Mm-hmm. This guy delivers. This guy keeps his word, all right? That means more to me than anything else, all right? I mean, I'm never going to be, you know, like one of the top tier comic creators of all time. And you take a little bit of less hubris, right? A little bit of humility, all right? I mean, hey, 50, 60, 100 years, who's going to remember Ron Fortier even?
They'll remember.
You know, but okay, so you're talking about like the greatest comic creators of all time. I mean, there's some things that may be overhyped or whatever, you know. So I was reading a comic a while back, you know, it was last year, and I've read a lot and like wrote reviews on them. I guess that you see that on LinkedIn, and it gets your name out there more because you're tagging Marvel or whoever does it. And I was like, this guy is just, I really like his writing. Honestly, he kind of writes like me, but I'm going to say better, but he writes like, but Dan Jurgens. And it's like, let me look up Dan Jurgens. Well, Dan Jurgens has been in comics since what, 1982 or 3 or something like that. He's been in it for a while and consistently at DC. You know, it's like, yeah, it's like, man, he's stuck with it.
Oh, you know, there are people in the business. I mean, when you grow up in the business, I mean, basically, I got hooked on comics. I mean, from the time I was 5 or 6, my dad got me hooked on. All right, I'm a baby boomer, and so along comes, you know, the 60s, and I'm in the start of the 60s. I'm 11, 12, 13 years old. Here comes the silver age of comics, right? And it was such a glorious time to be a comic book fan and collector. And, you know, the idea being is what Marvel ended up doing, what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did together, and with all that bullpen, was not only elevated what they were doing and bringing out all these amazing new series, Spider-Man, the next month, Fantastic Four, Thor. I mean, we were in our glory, all right? Well, that had the same kind of effect, i.e. elevating what they were doing across the street to DC. Because suddenly DC sales, and it's about business, Benny, and it's like, hey, wait, we're losing market share here. What are these guys doing, right? And suddenly the old pros at DC, Carmen Infantino and Julie Schwartz and the rest of them, which have been bugging the board of directors to let them do more new heroes and series and bring back the Flash. And so suddenly both of them are producing amazing, great comics. Okay, I'm a teenager. I'm eating this stuff up. I'm in high school and basically going, okay, this is what I want to do for a living. I want to work in this business. I want to write stories like this. I want to work with some of the best illustrators in the world and just tell stories. Okay. So get out of high school, 1964, hang around, didn't want to go back to school, was tired of school. So hang around at working at a local shoe factory in southern New Hampshire for about a year. Vietnam is going on. Realized I'm mostly going to get drafted. So decided, you know what? Rather than wait until they come and get me and put Uncle Sam's hand on my shoulder, the Army had this little thing going, a little conniving, little bit of, diplomacy. Whereas if you joined and took a battery of intelligence tests, IQ tests, you could qualify for a specific MOS. And I went, I'll give that a shot. So at 18, I take the test, find out I qualify to be a personnel specialist. I get that in writing guaranteed from Uncle Sam and the United States Army, and I join. I'm gone for 3 years. Two of those spent in Fort Ord, California, near Carmel. You want to talk about plush, dude? That was insane fun. The last year in Vietnam, not so plush. I get out in 1968, get home, go to college for about a year and a half, meet my first wife, get married, have a family. But being back, I start getting back into comics after 3 years of being out. And one of the first tools to help me do that was Don and Maggie Thompson's The Buyer's Guide to Comic Fandom. And I immediately get a subscription to it. And every week comes that newspaper with industry, this and that. And then I start buying fanzines. And I'm buying fanzines galore and seeing what other would-be comic book creators are doing to get into the business, when you know who they are. And I mean, in those days, and that's something I bemoan today in the comic book world, that we don't have that, that outpouring of fan publications where people can, apprentice, cut their teeth on doing this stuff. Because I mean, there were so many gifted writers and artists that started in the fanzines. John Burns was publishing in fanzines, Bob Layton, and the list just goes on, of all people over a period of like 10 years were all top-notch professionals moving the industry. So to carry this narrative along, in the fanzines, I end up hooking up with a graphic artist from Honolulu, Hawaii. Here I am living in New Hampshire, a kid named Gary Cotto. And Gary wants to be a comic book artist in the worst way possible. So we begin communicating with each other. We began writing each other back and forth, steadily going, all right, eventually we'll put something together. Then out of nowhere comes Charlton Comics out of Derby, Connecticut, comes up with this idea in the mid-'70s, late '70s, on a showcase tying a comic book called Charlton Bullseye, where if you submitted a story to them and you weren't a working professional, instead of money, they would give you 50 copies of that issue with your story in it. But what the heck? You're in a professional comic book sold in comic shops across the country, or mom and pop stores and comic shops or whatever. So I called Gary and said, hey, have you seen The Buyer's Guide? And Gary said, sure. I said, want to take a shot at it? He said, write a script, send it to me. Okay. I write a science fiction thing called Duel in the Stars. more like a la Star Wars kind of stuff. Send it to Gary. Gary illustrates it. By illustrate, I mean he literally pencil inks and letters it. Sends the original pages to Derby, Connecticut, and George Wildman was the managing editor at that time. His assistant editor was Bill Pearson. Bill Pearson was in charge of the Showcase project. Well, when he got Gary's pages, he and everybody in the Charlton offices were blown away because it was basically camera ready. That's how professional Gary was. He had done his homework. He knew what he needed to do. And all they had to do was basically color it. So sure enough, both of us get notices from Bill saying, hey, we got Duel in the Stars. You know, thanks for turning it in, you know, so professionally. All it needs to do is be colored, and it's going to appear in Charlton Bullseye #3, I believe. And sure enough, Gary and I both got 50 copies of that. Okay, so now the book's out. We're tickled pink. We just broke that line. And the next thing you know, we get another letter from Bill, basically saying, everybody here likes what you guys did. Can you give us something else? All right. Pick up the phone, call Honolulu again. And being fair, because again, this is my first professional appearance, I say to Gary, well, look, I basically suggested the science fiction story. You never gave me one quibble about it. All right, what do we do the second time? You come up with an idea. You tell me what you want and I'll write it. And out of the blue, Gary goes, well, you know, Ron, he goes, I always thought it'd be cool to have a comedy superhero who could break apart like a jigsaw puzzle and then put himself back together again.
So the Jigsaw Man.
Mr. Jigsaw, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, let me tell you guys, I'm hearing this for the first time, and I'm cringing. I'm going, oh, Lord, he wants to do comedy. All right. I mean, let me write action, horror, science fiction. But comedy? Oh, yeah. You know that fine line you got to walk to make that work. But hey, you know what? Again, I never even argued. I said, all right. And over the phone, I came up with the tagline was like, Mr. Jigsaw, man of 1,000 parts, right? And he's going to be this naive, you know, superhero from Portland, Maine. So I write the script, send it to the origin story, send it to Gary. And once again, Gary does this amazingly beautiful job with it. It's absolutely gorgeous. He sends it off to Bill Pearson. In the interim, the head honchos at Charlton decide, well, this thing isn't working, and they're going to cancel the Showcase program. And sure enough, I find out through the buyer's guide and other sources now that they're already starting to send back artwork that hadn't been printed. And thinking to myself, well, so much for Mr. Jigsaw. Nope. Again, get another letter from Bill Pearson, one for me and one for Gary, basically saying everybody in the Charlton offices went crazy over the Mr. Jigsaw story and the art. They absolutely loved it. They were laughing and having a great time with it. They don't want to send it back. So how would we feel if we allowed them to publish it in one of their reprint horror magazines, Scary Tales? And not only will they reprint it in Scary Tales, well, they'll print it in Scary Tales with 2 reprints, one from Pat Boyette, and I think the other one was a Steve Ditko story, all right? But they asked Gary to do the cover. So suddenly, Scary Tales #38 features the debut origin of Mr. Jigsaw, man of 1,000 parts. Man, I mean, we are riding this way. We're having such a good time, all right? This is just too good to be true. And it gets even better. Where I'm heading with all this as far as why we do this, how we love it, and who our heroes are, okay? One of the regular features in the buyer's guide every week was Don Thompson's review call. Every week, Don would pick like 10, 15 comics that had come out that week, right? And he'd review them. Okay. Well, here we go. Charlton sends out Scary Tales #38. And Tony Isabella in Cleveland owns a comic shop then. He gets into comics, and as he's going sorting the new comics for his comic shop, he puts a couple aside to read, and Tony reads our Mr. Jigsaw story, absolutely goes ape over it, picks up the phone and calls Don Thompson and said, "You've got to check this story out." He said, "I don't know who these guys are, but you got to check this out," which Don did. Sure enough, a couple of weeks after the book is out, or the week it came out, I get my issue, The Buyer's Guide. I'm flipping through it, and I get to Don's column, which I always read religiously, and there's a reprint of the cover of the Scary Tales 38. I went, uh-oh, we're being reviewed. Don Thompson's reviewing us. All right. Okay, well, I figure we'll take whatever licks we get, okay? Don starts writing his review and does this and says, "Hey, look," he goes, "Tony Isabella put me on to this story, all right?" He goes, "I don't know who this Fortier and Cato guys are, so I have no clue, all right?" But he says, "I've read through this thing," and he said, "it had me laughing out loud." And he said, "It reminded me of the best of the old C.C. Beck Captain Marvel comics."
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff. That's good.
I was blown away. All right. I was just, you couldn't ask for a better compliment. Okay. I remembered those old C.C. Beck. And to this day, that series is one of my all-time favorite comic creations ever done.
That's cool. Hey, let me ask you this. So I see that recently that you have did, is it Crimson Nun Rebellion #1 with Antarctic Press?
Yes.
Have you written other issues of this, or like a 2 or 3 or whatnot?
Oh, hopefully this is going to be a 4-issue miniseries. And I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of who the character is.
Yeah.
Crimson Nun was a spinoff from Ben Dunn's highly successful Warrior Nun series.
Yeah.
All right, done back in the day. And he'd been doing Warrior Nun, I think, for a couple of years when somebody got the idea, himself or, people at Antarctic Press, about wouldn't it be cool if there had been a Warrior Nun in the 1930s, 1940s? Well, voila, along comes the Crimson Nun with 45s blazing away, a la The Shadow, I love pulps. I'm the pulp guy. I absolutely
I love it.
Pulp.
Oh, it's great. Are you excited about Spider-Man Noir coming on Amazon? Do you know about this?
You can educate me. I've only heard it peripherally.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a short run series and all that. Of course, these Spider-Verse movies and all that have given it more oomph. But it's the story goes a bit different. It's more violent. It's seedier. He doesn't, crawl on walls as much. He has a gun. He shoots people, but he can still do all the web stuff. So he has basically all the abilities. They have a whole Noir universe. Marvel does. I looked it up on YouTube, and it went through the list of people. Daredevil's relatively the same. Spider-Man's relatively the same, and the rest of them are all different. Is it Namor? The merman guy. He is
Submariner.
Submariner. Yeah, he is the captain of a ship. Wolverine wears like brass knuckles with the claw things on it. He's like a detective that drinks a lot. But they're all kind of that way. But Spider-Man is pretty much on it. The trailer that they have looks really Sin City-esque, and so I think it'll be cool. And Nicolas Cage is playing him. He also voiced him in the movies.
From the University.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Right. Okay. That was in the Spider-Verse, wasn't it? That he showed up in. Right. Okay. Which I loved. I thought Spider-Verse was absolutely great. So I definitely going to check that out. I mean, the story with Crimson Nun and yours truly is Ben and I once prior to my getting the Green Hornet and doing that for Now Comics and working on upper level companies. Like I said, I'd worked on some small independent companies, and I'd worked for an outfit out of Rhode Island called Ocean Comics. And Gary and I had done an urban street fighter comic for them. I called Street Fight, a 4-issue series. After we did that, Bob Palin, the owner of Ocean, calls me up one afternoon and says, "Hey, Ron," he goes, "how would you like to write a Popeye comic?" And that made just totally blindsided. Popeye? Are you kidding? He said, no. He said, I've been talking with King Features at that time. As we all know now, he's becoming public domain.
No, yeah,
But
a lot of people do them now. They
now
had,
everybody in
Dynamite had Popeye versus Mars Attacks, and I thought
right.
that is, yeah.
Oh yeah, what's up? So Bob's going to do Popeye. Bob wants to do Popeye, right? And flatly honest, I'm like, Bob, I said, there's no appeal for me to do this. I mean, I grew up watching Popeye cartoons like everybody else. Right? It's the same, stories like, he's after olive oil, Brutus shows up and then he gets beat up and he eats a can of spinach and he saves the day. So Bob's like, well, give it some thought. He said, I like the way you write and how you put your twists on things. He says, give me 24 hours. I said, all right. So we hang up right now. This is the days before the internet, pre computers and all this good stuff. So I tell my wife, I'm taking a ride to the library. I go to the library and I'm looking I asked the librarian if she had any kind of books at all on cartooning, and knock on wood, really lucky, they had a copy of Jules Pfeiffer's American Cartoonist, which has an entire chapter devoted to L.C. Segar and Popeye. So sitting there with a notebook, I start reading that chapter and taking notes. And as I'm doing it, I suddenly realized that of everything Segar did to create Popeye, he never told us who his mother was. We know Poop Dick Pappy is his father, but we never met his mother. So driving home, I've got this wacky idea. That night I called Bob back and I says, all right, look, there's one piece of appeal to me. If I can write Popeye's origin story, I'll do the book for you. He goes, hang on. He says, I'll get back to you. We hang up. I'm figuring he's going to call King Features and they're going to say, no freaking way. All right. Calls back 20 minutes later and says, talk to the editor at King Features. Go ahead and do it.
Wow.
What? What? He says, do it. I said, all right. So I said, okay. Question number 2. Who's drawing this? And he Ben Dunn. I went, the Antarctic guy from Texas? He says, yeah, he's a huge Popeye fan. Who'd have known? Okay. So sure enough, I write this 24-page Born to the Sea, origin story of Popeye the Sailor, and Ben illustrates it. And he does such an amazing, it is absolutely great. All right. I mean, and so that was the one and only time Ben and I ever worked together. And from that point on, but he was familiar with my work. I was familiar with his. Okay. Time goes by, 20, 30, 40 years almost. And he has all this, success with Warrior Nun, right? But one of the bugaboos about that success is he had sold off Warrior Nun when the TV folks came along to make the series. It's no longer his. He sold the property. Okay.
Yeah. But that's Netflix who bought it, right?
Yeah, right. So still, they were decent to him. All right. They gave him, a really, decent amount of respect. And I'm probably sure they gave him some bucks. Flew him to Spain to be on the sets where they were filming the first season, whatever. And Ben was, happy with everything. Okay. Now, coming back home after the success of that, he and his brother decide they're going to revitalize Antarctic Press and bring it back bigger and better than before. And this is all based on the recent popularity of Warrior Nun and new attention given to Antarctic Press and their other stellar series like Ninja High School and tons of other books they did. Okay. So I'm watching all this transpire, and lo and behold, a friend of mine who does a local convention here in Fort Collins, next town over, Loveland, Colorado, gives me a call one day and says, hey, he said, we're doing our usual spring convention. You know Ben Dunn, don't you? I said, well, yeah, we're friends. I said, we've communicated on and off in the last few years. He said, you think he'd want to be a guest? We'll foot the bill. We'll fly him up here. We'll put him up at a room, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, let me try. So I emailed Ben. After, a long time, Ben gets back to me and said, I'd love to come up, especially because it gives a chance for you and I to meet face to face for the first time. And so now we're talking almost 3 years ago, Ben comes up, does the show. We get to meet. We go out to dinner that night. My wife and I take him out to dinner. And while we're out at dinner talking about what's going to happen with Anecdotes Press, what his plans are, what I'm doing, whatever, I just looked him straight in the face and I said, "Hey, Ben." He said, "What?" I says, "Would you entertain an idea for a new Crimson Nun miniseries?" He looks at me and smiles and says, "Sure, go ahead and do it." And I'm like, "Whoa." I said, "Wait." I said, I haven't given you a pitch." He said, "Ron," he said, "you're going to write it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You have an art team put together?" I said, "I think I do." He said, "Do it. Do it and send it to me. We'll publish it." So that was it. I recruited a young artist. I say young. I mean, at my age, mostly everybody's young. But the point is a gentleman named Jesse Thomas, who's done some work in the past for other independent comics, whose work I'd seen on Facebook and liked a great deal. So I got a hold of Jesse and said, "Hey, how would you like to do a series with me based on an old character created by Ben Dunn and Anecdotes Press?" The offshoot of that was the, Rebel Crimson Nun. We finished #1. Ben did a Kickstarter and got it published. It's out there. I've written issues 2 and 3. Jesse's, I want to say maybe 75% done issue #2.
That's awesome.
We've got a cover set for it, and that's coming along really well.
How big are these, incidentally, like page-wise, interior, roughly?
The first was only 22 pages, but we've expanded it. I was in a mindset of 22 because that's what Silverline does.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been working on for the last couple of years. But once we turned it in, Ben got back to me and said, "I love the story, Ron," but he said, "You could have made it bigger." Sat back, I said, "Do you have a limit?" I said, "Ron, do what you want. Tell the story you want to tell." That being the case, I got back to Jesse and I said, "You have any problems with 24-page stories?" And Jesse said, "Not at all." He said, "I'm having a ball doing this." He says, I love the characters and what we're doing." So issue 2 was 24 pages, 3 was 24 pages, and so will 4. And I say it's going to be a 4-issue miniseries. It could conceivably go to 5. All right.
Do you think those will go into trade paperback eventually?
Yes.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah. That's already been decided by Ben. Ben's basically said when it's all wrapped up and every issue is in print, we'll collect it. And the thing with that is, I hadn't realized it at the time, but because of this involvement of doing Crimson Nun, we communicate a lot more now on a regular basis, back and forth, to the point where that's another fun project that's going to happen. But I want to finish the Crimson Nun topic, all right? And I've realized over the last couple of years, a lot of people, a lot of Ben's fans, and a lot of fans of Anecdotes Press, right, are basically bemoaning the fact that he can't do Warrior Nun. All right, supposedly he can't, legally or whatever, all right? Which makes me now sit back and think, okay, well, then maybe that's one of the reasons he's really happy that we're doing Crimson Nun, okay? Because if you can't do the main, battleship, well, here's a cruiser that has the same, blood, the same bloodline, the same atmosphere, the same connection to the characters and whatever. And I think it's one of the reasons he was so quick to greenlight us doing the Crimson Nun miniseries.
He's such a nice guy. I like Ben a lot. We've talked a lot. I'd love to have him on the show sometime just for the utter confusion, because then you'd have 3 people named Benjamin. You could just call it "It's All About the Benjamins."
Yeah. But by the way, how did he get away? I'm so surprised that Netflix did not close this other title inclusive to.
Oh, you mean the Crimson Nun?
Yeah.
I'm going to credit that to Ben and his lawyers, all right? Because one thing I have learned about Ben in the last couple of years, like I said, since we've become more intimate and we stay more in contact now, is Ben's really savvy. As we were talking earlier about business, copyrights, trademarks, all those kind of things, all right? Ben is now really fanatical about protecting his intellectual properties. All right. I mean, he spouts IPs all the time and now tells young creators, all right, the dangers of them, and make sure you protect those, all right, right from the get-go. All right. Don't let any other people, claim them, all right, or take them away. So here we are, we're doing Crimson Nun. Things are going great. And sure enough, one morning I get an email from Ben, and he goes, "Hey, Ron," he goes, "any chance you'd like to write an issue of Tomorrow Girl?" Which is over the last year or so now become his flagship title, big time. All right. He's really promoting Tomorrow Girl. I mean, there's even talk of maybe a Tomorrow Girl film in the works, whether animation or live action. And I'm reading his letter, and he goes, because he said, "I'd really like you to write an issue and guest star your Mr. Jigsaw." Because he's doing that a lot with a lot of different people now. And they just recently published an issue where she teams up with Megaton Man, Don Simpson's character. Okay. And there were a couple more of those coming up. Okay. Now I'm still writing the Mr. Jigsaw series via Rob Davis's Redbud Studio with Gary Cotto. I thought about it, and I went, yeah, I got back to Ben and said, "Thanks. I'm flattered you asked. Sure, I'll write it." I get a couple copies of, Tomorrow Girl. He sends me some more background information. And after studying her and as a character, etc., I write a 24-page story, which basically teams up Mr. Jigsaw and Tomorrow Girl in a neutral locale where both of them get equal time in the story and equal action, trying to balance that whole kind of thing where it's still her comic, but he's a guest star, and what's their, reactions to each other in this. It was fun. I had a great time writing it. Well, I'm in the process of going over the first rewrite, almost ready to send it back to Ben, when I get this wicked idea. All right. I mean, absolutely wicked. I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, the way I wrote it, I could give this to Gary, and it could be the next issue of Mr. Jigsaw, guest starring Tomorrow Girl. Okay. I write a batch letter to Ben, to Gary, and to Rob Davis, the publisher, of Redbud Studios. And I put this proposal to them. Would any of you have any problems with doing 2 comics from the same script? Gary will do it as the next issue, number 19, of Mr. Jigsaw, guest starring Tomorrow Girl. And Ben will do it as issue number whatever, Tomorrow Girl, starring Mr. Jigsaw. Then fans out there can go and get both issues. Nothing has changed as far as dialogue, captions, or whatever, all right? And sit them down on your table and page to page, see how Gary interpreted the script and how Ben interpreted the script. Panel layouts, compositions, or whatever. And God bless all of them. They went, "Sounds like fun, let's do it." So we've already done the Mr. Jigsaw, number 19. The Tomorrow Girl starring Mr. Jigsaw, according to Ben, should be out at the end of June. There you go.
That's cool.
I mean, I think they should have planned it coming out together, honestly.
Well, it's pretty much almost that, Ben, because we print our comics via Kablam out of Florida. And I mean, now they've had that issue for I don't know how long. I mean, we sell it through their retail site online as well, indieplanet.com, but they've yet to post it. So I'm not overly concerned. All right. Basically, even if they post it prior to June, I'm just going to sit on it. And then when Ben's comes out, I'll post everywhere. Oh, you can get a copy at Indie Planet of Mr. Jigsaw number 19. And
Gotcha.
As you said, fans will be able to get them both at the same time.
All right. So the press release will be coordinated properly together.
Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
That's a very good idea, by the way. I like that idea. Crossovers with different artists' interpretation of the images.
So do you prefer Kablam over Comic Wellspring then? Because I know indie people that use one or the other a lot.
I've never used anything else. And I say use. Rob is the guy who runs and publishes our comic book arm of our mutual writing and producing together. And Rob pretty much runs that. And he's been using Kablam. We've been using Kablam, wow, I want to say almost 8 or 9 years now. and I'm really, really happy with them, specifically because over those years and all the different comics that we've done via them, there have been 2 or 3 snafus where some pages got printed the wrong way or were left out or published upside down or whatever, right? And the minute we get the comics, Rob picks up the phone and calls Jenny Gregory at customer service at Kablam and says, hey, we just got in, 50 copies of this book and all the pages were upside down or this or that, right? And she just basically says, don't worry about it. We'll ship you a new shipment. It'll be out within 2 days. So what do we do with these? They're yours. Throw them away, give them away, whatever. And that's the way they've treated us from day one. They are really, really good about treating their customers.
What did you say that the name of the site is where they sell their online stuff at?
Where they sell their stuff is www.planet.com. And every single Kablam book that the creators want sold online is up there.
Okay, that's neat.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. And there's a lot of comics up there. And but some really, really good independent young creators worth checking out.
Right.
Yeah, and as of right now, all our Mr. Jigsaw books, 1 to 19, are there. Okay. Our graphic horror novel, Daughter Dracula, is there. And the volume 1 collection of my Boston Bombers, my alternate world fantasy pulp story that I created for Caliber Press years and years ago, as a 5-issue miniseries. And we collected that eventually, and that's up there as well. And so basically, the idea of self-publishing like that is whenever Rob and I are going to a convention, we just put in an order, and for reorders, you'll get them back within 2 weeks. So as long as you give them a 2 weeks lead time, tell them how many comics you want, they're at your doorstep and ready for you to take to your con. It works out real well for us.
Very cool. That's neat. Benny, did you have any other questions?
No, but I just want to look up Crimson Nun and try and understand what's the difference between both.
Well, the era.
The era is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically the concept with Warrior Nun was that they were a secret organization of nuns working for the Vatican and fighting demons. So there's a great deal more fantasy, black arts and magic, okay? And they have a sword and all that.
I want to see how is this a nun?
Crimson Nun is basically dealing with like Nazi saboteurs in the US.
that I got right. That I got. So this is the Crimson Nun,
the approach I'm taking. And there's the original 4 issues of Crimson Nun.
And then if you go over here, just to understand, right? Just to understand the differences. Then if you go over here, when you're talking about, is this is not the Warrior Nun, is it? Oh, it is.
No, that's
so who is Warrior Nun Ariella or Arella?
That's just the name of the lead Warrior Nun.
Gotcha. I mean, for a Warrior Nun, she's very provocatively dressed here.
oh Lord! I mean, if I could swivel this whole camera around, I mean, that series was so bloody popular that ultimately they did toy figures, and I have toy figures of Ariella up on my bookshelf everywhere else, whatever. And let me hang on.
And was this what this wasn't sold, right to Netflix?
No, he kept that. He didn't let it go.
So even the Ariella ritual, even the Ariella versions, he kept, right?
Right. Well, no, he sold anything with Warrior Nun was sold to Netflix.
Okay, so the Ariella was also sold to Netflix.
Right. The only thing that wasn't was Crimson Nun.
Okay. Wow.
So is she in Germany? Where's Crimson Nun at?
Crimson Nun operates out of Brooklyn.
Okay.
So basically, we had a gentleman do the cover for Crimson Nun #1, which I don't have right next to me right now. But initially, the gentleman who did the cover did such a fantastic, beautiful cover of Crimson Nun #1, the Rebellion.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, Ben comes back to me and says, well, he says, we're going to do 2 covers. He says, I'm going to do the alternative cover.
Yeah, the
I said, really? He says, sure. He says, I'm just excited about having the character back in Anarctic Press. And he said, I love what you're doing with the story and whatever. So this is the alternate cover.
Looks very good.
That's cool.
Crimson Nun #1.
It looks
Yeah,
very.
I know
nicely
Ben Dunn
remastered.
can draw.
Oh yeah, that was. It was
Can you just turn it a little bit so we can get the glare off? There we go. There we go.
See if I can do this. Hang on.
Wow, it's a good.
That
cover.
awesome.
That's a good cover. Yeah, that's a good. I also see that you guys could use stock.
Cool.
It's like a matte satin finish.
Oh, I love it. You have to see you have to see the original. Somewhere's out there. It's online. Check it out. I think both of you will be greatly impressed. All right.
I will definitely look at it. Definitely.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna have to close this has been a good. Listen, usually I talk a lot. Ben knows it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But this time I just wanted to hear the stories. I mean, it was very, very interesting.
Let me ask you this because I'm curious. I wonder how historical the Crimson Nun thing gets because I know that during that point in history, they had the Nazi Youth of America camps and all that going on in New York. Does it deal with any of that propaganda indoctrination?
Oh yeah, the German immigrants here and all that. Well, we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on bits and pieces of that. All right. But believe me, there are a few surprises in here. Again, you have to understand my passion for wanting to do this particular character, which waited for almost 35 years for me to get my hands on it, right? As much as I liked the first 4-issue miniseries that Ben had done back in the day, he didn't write it. And I enjoyed the story, but I just felt like there was so much potential that the writer just didn't see, all right? I'm a history buff myself, all right?
Oh, I love
and I'm
that,
like,
yeah.
if you're gonna set a character in a specific era, know that era and know what you can mine from it to add to your drama and your story. Okay, but
Yeah,
this is what this is about, and this is the change that I've made in Crimson Nun. And Ben knows it. I think he's excited about how we're doing it, where we're going with it. And again, like I said, I've got 3 scripts under my belt, and getting very, very anxious to release #2. And
love it.
This
Love
is
it.
awesome. Yeah, I'm a fan. I love that. That sounds cool. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Hey, guys,
Benny, they're killing Nazis in your neck of the woods.
What's that?
Well, in the 1940s, there were.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In the 1940s, you had a lot of Brooklyn. You had a lot of New Yorkers who were Nazi sympathizers. Well, I mean the Triple K. They were around. Obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they tried to do a march in the 90s. It didn't work. People came out with bats and clubs and started beating them out. That was a whole thing. If you remember that, when Giuliani was around.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Well, go ahead.
Hey guys, again, I want to thank you for having me on board. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it, and
no, I appreciate the nostalgia and the stories. I mean, this tells people a lot, and how. Listen, I always tell people in entrepreneurship work because ultimately every comic creator is an entrepreneur, right? You got to toughen it out. You got to make it happen. It takes years to develop your name, your trade. I mean, I didn't want to make a comment in the beginning. Reputation is reputation, but you're not going to have 100% of people that know you say good about you. That's near impossible. If 100% of people that or you've encountered say good about you, you got to be weary of that person. There's something wrong with that
biblical,
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not real.
Yeah.
Real people don't have 100%, right?
I hear you. Okay, I mean, it was what Abraham Lincoln. You can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick story. I'm in the San Diego Con the year after we did the Green Hornet. Okay. Part of me doing the Green Hornet was bringing him up to modern times. Then 1990, and we gave him a female Kato. Okay. I'm sitting at the table. I'm autographing fans coming up, and they're loving Bubba. And then this young college guy, college age or whatever, walks up and goes, You ruined the Green Hornet. It sucks. You destroyed it. How dare you? You had no right to change that. A female. And he starts ranting and raving at me. My wife's like looking at the publishers and the editor of Now Comics are like, move on, sir. Right? He says, you're going to rot in hell for what you did to the Green Hornet. Okay.
All right.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. That's where I left it. I said,
So I appreciate you validating my point.
How often does that happen at cons? How often does somebody go totally?
I'm sure a lot of people get upset when you guys change things around.
Hey, look, it's what I tell everybody. All right, and the truth of the matter is, they're comic books. Come on, okay. I mean, is that what you centered your entire life on?
I can't remember.
Look, I feel sorry for you, buddy. All right, the real world and what we do in comics and in movies or whatever, it's fun. It's not real.
I mean, he would have a strong complaint, if the movies change what's in the comics.
Oh yeah,
that's what I ultimately I hate when movies change the comic. Like they
always are like Lord of the Rings. Oh, you're not going to get the same thing from the movie. The dude that wrote, and there's a ton of people that sign off on this because you can't just jump and do this as the writer. But breaking up Mary Jane and Spider-Man, that's like all that you ever hear about. It's like they were happily married and their marriage was destroyed, so elderly Aunt May can live like how much ever longer that she's got to carry on. So he makes a deal with Satan. Basically, Mephisto. Over that. Some dude was on Twitter the other day, and
you know what? I think it's probably some devil worshiper that was working on that comic. All of a sudden, they bring the devil to Spider-Man. I mean, like,
no, he's in a lot of them. He's a Satan character, but they did that as a plot, and then they're like that little girl that you saw through this. That was the daughter that you would have had that'll never be born now because you suck that bad. And people go wilder, and they say
I think everybody's going too much on this multiverse nonsense.
Yeah.
It's overplayed. But
they do have Spider Girl, where the comic series that was outed the day, where Spider-Man's daughter grew up as Spider Girl, and kind of donned that mantle and everything. But yeah, the stuff now, Peter Parker and Mary Jane, they're never gonna be together, which is stupid in a way because that's what everybody wants. You want Lois and Clark to be together. You want Mary Jane and Peter Parker to be together. They're the solid couples.
We all want good endings. Come on, okay? We all want to live happily ever after, for Pete's sakes.
Yeah, agreed. All right, guys. Thank you for this podcast. Thank you. Anyone who wants the QR code, Mr. Ron's QR code, Mr. Ron Fortier, you can QR code here. In addition, we have Ben's right here. Right here's Ben's Instagram. And I think this is Ben's Amazon. Going back to his Instagram, back to his Amazon.
What are we talking about? Instagram? Are we talking about LinkedIn? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean?
I mean X. I apologize. This is Ben's X.
I'm like, I don't have Instagram.
Right. This is Ben's QR. I apologize. This is Ben's QR code for X. Follow him on X for all things. And on LinkedIn. He's on LinkedIn. If you're in the business arena,
where all the drama is. If you want all the middle school garbage that goes on.
If you want to know the days of our lives of Ben, go to X.
Yeah, just, you'll see me eating a sandwich or whatever.
Yeah, like he was eating this podcast. So professional. I'm just kidding.
I mean, man's got to eat.
No. Listen, Ben has.
I'm going to eat more when I get off of this.
Yeah. He's got a tight schedule, guys. So he's doing us a favor, guys. And this Ben's Amazon. Don't forget Super Black. Buy a Super Black comic. By the way, there's a feature in this comic. I'm updating the comic. I'm changing the black background to white now, just to make it more. So anyone who wants to buy now a black background version of the comic as a background should buy it now, because it's gonna be changed by April. Anyway, go ahead.
Benny, like he said, Ron was talking about how he had written novels and short stories. I don't get that, Ron, because I have too. I've got 30 literary books right now that I'm sitting on. It's fun. I like all the mediums. I've been in music, and did songs and all. I saw that you'd wrote plays and everything too. It's awesome, man. It's cool to do the different mediums of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, you stay fresh. Okay, I mean, all the years of doing comics, and like I said, 35 years, and then one day it was like, I should try my hand in short stories, and then work my way up. Felt good doing short stories, got them published, whatever. and then got into this whole new pulp, community. And then that was it. Started writing novels and never looked back. But comics are always going to be my first love. Always.
Same here, guys. Same here. All right, everybody. Salute, guys. See you
Good
guys.
night. Thank you.
I hope I did it right.
Yes, you did.
All right, guys. Bye-bye. Be well. Stay tuned for next week.
My son would go wild if you didn't. He's in the Navy. He's trying to become a SEAL, and he's doing good. They've got him in leadership and all that. He's in San Antonio right now, and he did not go to the Ben Dunn thing because he's got the white rope and all that, and they're sending him to Connecticut, and they're also sending him to Mississippi. He's going to be in a submarine.
All right.
Well,
Ending the stream.